Alright, so in the last video we were talking about a negative externality, and in this one we're going to start talking about positive externalities. And the way that we model them is a little bit differently than the way that we model a negative externality. But they both start at the same place. So they both start at just your plain old supply and demand diagram. But this time we're going to have, this will be demand in private, and then just supply. So we're not going to have to mess with supply at all, and you'll see why in a second. So just for a refresher, a positive externality, this is a benefit to someone not involved in the transaction. So I'm just going to write to someone else. So this is a benefit to someone not involved in this market transaction. So benefit to someone else. Alright, so we start off with no intervention whatsoever in this market. At QA, this will be point A, and this will be price A. And so before we go any farther, I'm going to try and give this diagram a little bit of life. So let's imagine that this is the market for front yard, for like nice front yards. So for grass and trees and flowers in your front yard. So if it's really expensive to kind of landscape your front yard, that's the word I was looking for, to landscape your front yard, only a couple people will landscape it. And as it gets cheaper and cheaper, more and more people will landscape their front yard. And this is just looking at how happy it makes them, their demand, how much benefit goes to them. And so then obviously it costs something to landscape a front yard, so we have this supply curve, and that this is the point of equilibrium. So this quantity to the A number of people landscape their front yard, and they pay this much, let's say per month, they pay P to the A per month to landscape it. But that landscaping, the benefit of that landscaping, the benefit of that beautiful front yard does not just accrue to the people that own the house. It also accrues to all of their neighbors because they get to look at it. So we have to take into account the positive externality that goes to their neighbors. And we'll call this the societal demand. The demand, actually we'll just put for society, not societal. So there is a positive externality, and the amount of that externality is measured by, if we were to go directly over here, from A to C, and there's no real, there's no market quantity transacted here, so I'm just going to call that C. And this distance right here, from QA to C, so this would actually be C minus QA. So C minus QA is that distance right there, and that is the benefit, the amount of the positive externality. So in our example, that will be the benefit, the enjoyment that your neighbors get from looking at your beautiful front yard. So if we can find some way for the government to kind of regulate that enjoyment, to kind of take into account that enjoyment, and we'll talk about that in later videos, that's a whole nother can of worms, then we will, instead of producing Q to the A beautiful lawns, we will now produce QB, beautiful front yards. So that will be QB, which is greater than QA, and we will also pay more for them, assuming that supply stays the same, ceteris paribus. So this will be P to the B. So we can see that in a positive, if there's a positive externality, then so this is if unregulated, the quantity produced, sorry, I can't write right now, produced, will be less than the quantity that is optimal. And then the price charged will be also the price charged will be less than the optimal price. So the last thing that I want to reiterate is that negative externality is shown by a decrease in supply, because the company has to bear the costs, basically, or the firm or the producers, all of those, depending on what kind of graph we're drawing, if this is a market or a firm diagram. So whatever it is, the cost leads to a decrease in supply, where with a positive externality, the benefit leads to an increase in demand. So the difference where this was supply, the private supply or the private marginal cost, and then here was the cost to society. We have the analog here with demand of having private demand and then demand for society. So I hope that that's clear. If there's anything that isn't clear, feel free to let me know, and I'll see you in the next video.